There is one figure who, since ancient times, has dominated both hearts and minds: Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty, love, and desire. But do you know the real secrets behind this deity, who is as revered as she is feared? Aphrodite is not just an icon of beauty. She is a force that has shaped destinies, toppled empires, and unleashed passions that have changed the course of history. Far beyond appearances, Aphrodite used her powers strategically, manipulating kings and warriors as easily as she inspired artists and poets. Have you ever wondered how a goddess, born of violence and chaos, became the personification of love, and how this love, so idealized, could be a weapon as powerful as a warrior's sword? Get ready to uncover mysteries that few know about, explore the hidden details of her legends, and discover how Aphrodite used her beauty as a veil to cover up her true intentions. If you believe that love is just a harmless feeling, you're about to discover how it can be the most devastating force in the universe. Don't miss the opportunity to understand what it really means to be Greece's most attractive and beautiful goddess, and how her legacy continues to resonate to this day. Aphrodite, the goddess of love, emerges from the pages of Greek mythology as a figure as fascinating as she is contradictory. While the ancient Greeks revered her for her incomparable beauty, they also feared her for the unpredictable force of the passions she could arouse. Aphrodite was not only a deity of romantic love, but also of burning desire, capable of shaping the destinies of men and gods. Her presence extended beyond Greek myths, echoing in Roman legends and even in ancient Celtic narratives. In each culture, the figure of Aphrodite embodied both the sweetness and the chaos that love can bring, showing that, just like ancient legends, human emotions are complex and often contradictory. Aphrodite's duality reflects the very nature of love, an emotion that can be both a source of joy and suffering. In mythology, she is both the gentle inspirer of affection and the inciter of conflict, a goddess who could just as easily unite hearts or cause wars. As history itself shows, love is a recurring theme in mythologies all over the world, whether in Norse mythology with Freya's passions, or in the Egyptian legends of Isis and Osiris. Aphrodite, however, stands out for the way in which her presence influenced all spheres of life, from small romances to great battles. Interestingly, Aphrodite's power was not limited to carnal love. She was also seen as a goddess who influenced spiritual connections and harmony between beings, a role that is often forgotten in more modern narratives. This ability to create deep bonds was something that the ancient Greeks associated directly with Aphrodite's power, attributing to her the ability to unite ancient civilizations in times of peace and prosperity. This makes us think about how, in our modern lives, human connections are still as vital and influential as in the legends of yesteryear. The fascination with Aphrodite also lies in her ability to challenge established norms, often acting in an unpredictable and even subversive way. She didn't follow the rules of Olympus, creating her own laws and acting according to her desires, which often caused discomfort among the other gods. Her actions often led to developments that changed the course of history, as can be seen in Greek mythology, where her decisions often triggered events of great importance, such as the Trojan War. It's as if Aphrodite reminded us that love, in all its forms, can never be totally controlled. By studying the figure of Aphrodite, we can see how she embodies both the pleasures and dangers of love. She is both the sweetness of a first kiss and the pain of separation, the peace of an embrace and the tension of a forbidden passion. In a world where emotions are often seen as something to be contained, the story of Aphrodite teaches us that they also have their own power, which can be both creative and destructive. And so, like the waves that brought Aphrodite to the coast of Cyprus, the tide of the narrative leads us to explore her enigmatic birth, an event shrouded in blood, foam, and mystery. The birth of Aphrodite is one of the most enigmatic and symbolic episodes in Greek mythology. The goddess emerged from a scene marked by violence and transformation, when Kronos, in an act of revenge, castrated his father Uranus and threw his genitals into the sea. From this mixture of blood and semen, the ocean foam gave shape to what would become the personification of beauty and love. It's fascinating to think how mythology uses this moment of destruction to create something so contrary, the goddess of love herself. In many ancient cultures, such as Celtic and Egyptian mythology, there are similar symbols of life emerging from death, showing how the ancients saw renewal and creation as interconnected forces. Aphrodite emerged from the waters near the island of Cyprus in a scene that has captured the imagination of artists for centuries. Her appearance was described as a moment of splendor and purity, where the goddess, fully formed, emerged from the sea, encased in a mother-of-pearl shell. The story of Aphrodite's birth echoes several legends from other ancient civilizations, such as the birth of Venus, her Roman counterpart, or the aquatic deities of Norse and Celtic mythologies, who also symbolize the beauty and mystery of the ocean depths. The image of Aphrodite emerging from the waters is a powerful metaphor for the idea that beauty and love can emerge from where you least expect it. The choice of Cyprus as the place where it was born is not random either. The island, with its beaches bathed by the Mediterranean, has long been associated with fertility and love. It is believed that temples dedicated to Aphrodite existed on the island, becoming centers of worship and adoration. This connection with specific places is something common in mythology, where gods and goddesses often have deep connections with certain regions, influencing local culture and religious practices. In Aphrodite's case, the connection with the sea and Cyprus reinforces her role as a goddess who is as much connected to nature as she is to the human heart. The myth of Aphrodite's birth also tells us about the cyclical nature of life and love. Just as sea foam is a product of something that is constantly renewing itself, the goddess of love symbolizes the idea that human emotions are always in flux, changing and evolving. However, this constant renewal also carries with it a load of uncertainty and unpredictability. Aphrodite, born of an act of violence, carries within her the reminder that love is not always a peaceful force. Sometimes it arises from the depths of conflict and transformation, just like the goddess herself. The story of Aphrodite's birth is, in essence, a reminder that beauty can emerge from chaos, and that love, in its purest form, cannot be contained by limits or expectations. Just as the sea is vast and indomitable, Aphrodite's influence spreads across mythologies and cultures, from ancient Greece to Norse and Celtic myths, where the power of emotions and passions is always central. And so we explore the goddess' education and beauty, elements that made her even more irresistible to mortals and gods alike. After her spectacular birth, Aphrodite was received by the gods with great reverence and was entrusted to the care of the hours, the guardians of time and the seasons. These deities, with their eternal wisdom, educated Aphrodite, teaching her the art of seduction, beauty, and love. Under the tutelage of the hours, Aphrodite not only blossomed in her appearance, but also developed a deep understanding of how her abilities could influence both gods and mortals. It's interesting to note how, in mythologies around the world, such as Egyptian and Norse mythology, goddesses often received special training that prepared them for their unique roles in the pantheon. Aphrodite's education was marked by a symbolic event. The hours crowned her with a golden crown and granted her a magical belt, known as the Belt of Aphrodite. This belt, enchanted with the power to make its wearer irresistible, is a classic example of how magical objects play a crucial role in ancient legends. Just as in Celtic mythology, where amulets and talismans possess supernatural powers, Aphrodite's belt symbolized not only the goddess beauty, but also her ability to influence and control desire. In a world where appearance and charisma have such an impact, this symbol becomes even more powerful and relevant. Aphrodite's concept of beauty was not limited to her physical appearance. Her beauty was described as something transcendent, radiating an aura that touched the hearts and minds of those who gazed upon her. In many ways, Aphrodite symbolized the ideal of beauty in ancient Greece, an ideal that was deeply linked to harmony and proportion. Just as ancient civilizations had their own notions of perfection, such as the Egyptians with their symmetrical sculptures or the Romans with their idealized representations of gods, Aphrodite represented the quintessence of beauty, a standard that inspired artists and poets for generations. Despite her unparalleled beauty, Aphrodite stood out not only for her looks, but also for her charming and seductive personality. Her words were as sweet as honey and her demeanor graceful and captivating. This combination of charm and intelligence made Aphrodite admired and desired by all who crossed her path, gods and mortals alike. In Greek mythology, this ability to influence the behavior of others is a recurring theme, reflecting the way the ancients understood the dynamics of power and attraction. Similarly, in the legends and folklore of other cultures, such as Nordic folklore or Celtic mythology, outer beauty was often seen as a reflection of inner virtue, an ideal that Aphrodite perfectly embodied. So Aphrodite grew up, not only as a goddess of incomparable beauty, but also as a figure of immense power and influence. Her education and gifts prepared her to navigate the complex world of the Olympian gods, where emotions and alliances were as volatile as the forces of nature. But, as we will see below, not even the most beautiful goddess in the Greek pantheon was immune to the whims of fate, and her marriage to Hephaestus, the god of fire, would prove to be a union full of conflicts and forbidden passions. Aphrodite's marriage to Hephaestus, the god of fire and forging, was a union that surprised everyone on Olympus. Hephaestus, known for his unattractive appearance and limp, seemed an unlikely choice for the goddess of love and beauty. However, this union was arranged by Zeus, who wanted to avoid the conflicts that could arise from Aphrodite's dispute among the gods. The marriage, however, was not based on love, but on convenience. And as legends and myths show, unions forged by external interests rather than affinity often have unpredictable consequences. It's a lesson echoed in the stories of several ancient civilizations, where arranged relationships often led to intrigue and betrayal. Although married to Hephaestus, Aphrodite soon became bored with married life and found solace in the arms of Ares, the impetuous god of war. The relationship between Aphrodite and Ares was not just an escape from boredom, but a union of opposites, the goddess of love and the god of war. This love affair, full of passion and secrecy, soon became a scandal among the gods. Aphrodite's adultery is a theme that resonates not only in Greek mythology, but also in other cultures, where deities often reflected human complexities and flaws. As in Egyptian mythology, where gods and goddesses also faced moral dilemmas, Aphrodite and Ares represent the internal conflict between desire and duty. Hephaestus, despite his humble appearance, was no fool. When he discovered the affair between his wife and Ares, he plotted an ingenious revenge. With his skill as a divine blacksmith, Hephaestus forged an indestructible net as thin as a spider's web and placed it over the bed where Aphrodite and Ares lay. When the lovers lay down together, the net trapped them, exposing them to shame in front of all the other gods of Olympus. This story not only illustrates Hephaestus' sagacity, but also Aphrodite's vulnerability, showing that even though she was the goddess of love, she was not immune to the traps of desire. The public humiliation of the lovers is an episode that demonstrates how emotions can lead to dramatic consequences, something that is commonly explored in mythologies around the world. Despite the scandal, Aphrodite was not severely punished for her actions. In fact, her relationship with Ares continued, and the two had several children, including Harmonia and Eros, the god of love. This shows us that in Greek mythology, as in other ancient traditions, the faults and transgressions of the gods were not necessarily condemned in a moralistic way. On the contrary, these events were seen as part of the complex fabric of divine life, reflecting the very contradictions of human existence. In many mythological stories, such as fairy tales or urban legends, the consequences of the characters' actions don't always follow conventional moral expectations, which is what makes these narratives so fascinating and timeless. Aphrodite's marriage and infidelity remind us that relationships are often complicated, and that even the gods are not above emotional conflicts. The combination of love, desire, and revenge creates a plot as intricate as the webs woven by Hephaestus. As we delve deeper into Aphrodite's stories, it becomes clear that her actions not only shaped the destinies of the gods, but also had a lasting impact on the legends and myths that have been passed down from generation to generation. And it is precisely in Aphrodite's revenge that we find the seeds of new conflicts and passions, which we will explore next. Aphrodite's response to the scandal was not passive. As the goddess of love and desire, Aphrodite was also a master of the art of revenge, especially when her honor was tarnished. After the public humiliation orchestrated by Hephaestus, Aphrodite used her powers to sow chaos between the gods and mortals. Inspired by her wounded pride, the goddess manipulated the hearts of other gods, provoking intense and often devastating passions. Just as Celtic and Norse legends speak of gods playing with the destinies of mortals, Aphrodite transformed Olympus into a stage for power games, where love became a sharp weapon capable of bringing down even the most powerful. Among the victims of Aphrodite's revenge were both gods and mortals who, under her influence, became pawns in her strategies. A classic example is the story of Pygmalion, a sculptor who fell in love with a statue he had created himself, a love awakened by Aphrodite herself. With a mixture of compassion and irony, the goddess brought the statue to life, but only after Pygmalion had suffered for his impossible love. This story, which echoes in various cultures such as Egyptian legends and Celtic myths, shows how love, when manipulated, can be both a blessing and a curse. Aphrodite, in her revenge, did not destroy directly, but led others astray in their own desires. Another example of Aphrodite's ingenuity and revenge is the creation of mythological figures such as Adonis and Anchises, mortals whose beauty attracted the goddess' attention. Adonis, in particular, became a symbol of tragic love, where Aphrodite, unable to protect him, lost him to a violent death caused by a boar sent by a jealous Ares. This loss, which deeply wounded the goddess, also showed that not even she could control every aspect of love. As in Norse mythology, where gods like Odin and Thor also faced the limitations of their power, Aphrodite had to deal with the consequences of her own dominion. Aphrodite also inspired supernatural passions that led to the creation of new mythological figures and the emergence of new conflicts. Her capacity for deception was not limited to carnal love, but extended to the love of glory, victory, and beauty. She incited wars, such as the Trojan War, through promises of love and beauty which, in the end, brought destruction. These stories show that Aphrodite's power went beyond Olympus, touching the lives of entire ancient civilizations, shaping their histories and beliefs. Her influence is a constant reminder that love, in all its forms, is a powerful and unpredictable force, present in mythologies all over the world. Aphrodite's revenge and deceit lead us to reflect on how love can be a force for both creation and destruction. Aphrodite not only inspired love, but also caused deep divisions among those who fell under her spell. These divisions, as we will see in the next topic, not only shaped individual stories, but also had a profound impact on larger myths, such as the tale of Psyche, where love and beauty led to a series of trials that changed a mortal's fate forever. The myth of Psyche is one of the most gripping and profound stories in Greek mythology, where Aphrodite plays a crucial role. Psyche, a mortal whose beauty was so dazzling that it began to eclipse Aphrodite herself, aroused the wrath of the goddess. Annoyed that mortals were comparing Psyche to a deity, Aphrodite decided to punish her. She sent her son Eros to make Psyche fall in love with the most despicable man in the world. However, the story takes an unexpected turn when Eros himself falls in love with Psyche. This episode reminds us of how, in Egyptian and Roman mythology, love often defies the expectations of the gods, revealing its capricious and unpredictable nature. Aphrodite's revenge, however, does not end there. Upon discovering the love between Eros and Psyche, Aphrodite imposed a series of seemingly impossible trials to test the young mortal's perseverance. These tasks were dangerous and challenging, demanding of Psyche not only courage, but also cunning. In a way, these trials reflected the heroic journeys of other mythologies, such as the Celtic and Norse legends, where the protagonists also faced superhuman challenges to achieve their goals. Aphrodite, in her attempt to punish Psyche, actually created a path of growth and transformation for the young woman, something we see repeatedly in the mythological narratives of various cultures. One of the most difficult tasks imposed on Psyche by Aphrodite was to descend into the underworld and return with a vial containing the essence of Persephone's beauty. This mission, similar to the epic journeys of heroes like Orpheus and Hercules, required Psyche to face her greatest fears. The descent into the underworld, a recurring theme in many ancient mythologies, symbolizes the confrontation with the shadows of one's own soul and the return with renewed wisdom and power. Psyche's story teaches us that true love is not just a matter of attraction, but of overcoming and sacrifice, a message that resonates deeply in the legends and fairy tales of many cultures. Psyche's suffering, however, was not in vain. By overcoming each of the trials imposed by Aphrodite, she not only proved her worth, but also gained immortality, joining Eros in the heavens as a goddess. Psyche's final elevation from mortal to immortal is a powerful metaphor for the transformation that love can bring about in the lives of those who fully embrace it. In the mythologies of ancient civilizations, this idea of ascension is common, representing the ultimate prize for those who demonstrate virtue and perseverance in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. Aphrodite, in the end, accepts Psyche as part of the divine circle, recognizing the power of love that transcends even the barriers between gods and mortals. The story of Psyche is a reminder that true love is a journey full of challenges, but which, in the end, offers rewards that outweigh any suffering. Through this myth, Aphrodite shows not only her vengeful side, but also the depth of her influence on the destiny of those who dare to love intensely. And it is this influence that leads to the famous story of the Apple of Discord, where Aphrodite once again demonstrates how desire can trigger events that change the course of history, as we will see below. The story of the Apple of Discord is one of the most famous in Greek mythology, where Aphrodite plays a decisive role. It all begins with a banquet of the gods to which Eris, the goddess of discord, was not invited. Feeling slighted, Eris decided to take revenge by throwing a golden apple into the middle of the feast with the inscription, "To the most beautiful." This simple action sowed chaos among the goddesses, as Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite immediately claimed the prize. This moment perfectly illustrates how small provocations can trigger monumental conflicts, something also present in mythologies such as Celtic and Norse, where disputes between deities often led to great disasters. Zeus, realizing that intervening directly could lead to more problems, delegated the decision to the Trojan prince Paris, who was living as a shepherd on Mount Ida. Paris, unaware of the magnitude of his choice, was approached by the three goddesses, each offering him a bribe to win the golden apple. Hera promised him power, Athena wisdom, and victory in battle. But it was Aphrodite who won Paris over by offering him the love of the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen of Sparta. This episode highlights Aphrodite's ability to manipulate desires and ambitions, using love as a tool to achieve her own ends, something we see reflected in various narratives from ancient civilizations, where gods manipulated humans for their own interests. Paris' decision to give the apple to Aphrodite not only sealed his fate, but also set off a chain of events that would lead to the Trojan War. Aphrodite, true to her promise, helped Paris kidnap Helen, provoking the anger of the Greeks and leading to one of the most epic conflicts in Greek mythology. Aphrodite's participation in the war, protecting Paris and other Trojans, shows how her actions were not limited to love and beauty, but also had profound political and military implications. Just as in Egyptian and Celtic myths, where the gods influenced battles and alliances, Aphrodite demonstrated that love, when combined with power, can be both a creative and destructive force. During the Trojan War, Aphrodite didn't hesitate to use all her powers to protect those under her protection. Her direct intervention in battles, such as when she rescued Paris from Menelaus, illustrates her determination to keep her promises, regardless of the consequences. However, the war also revealed the limitations of her power. When wounded in battle by Diomedes, Aphrodite was forced to retreat to Olympus, showing that even though she was a goddess, she was not above mortal dangers. This vulnerability adds a layer of complexity to her character, something that is common in the mythologies of various cultures, where even the gods face challenges that test their limits. The apple of discord is ultimately a symbol of the power of desire and love to alter the course of history. Aphrodite, by using her charm to secure the golden apple, showed that love is not only a force to unite, but also to divide. The Trojan War, with all its tragedies and heroics, was partly a consequence of the actions of the goddess of love. As we explore how Aphrodite's origin reflects the themes of beauty and power in Greek mythology, we realize that her choices and influences were as vast as they were profound, shaping destinies and redefining the concepts of loyalty, honor, and sacrifice. The origin of Aphrodite, born from the foam of the sea after the violent act between Kronos and Uranus, encapsulates the essence of beauty and power in Greek mythology. This narrative shows us that in mythology, beauty is not just something superficial, but is closely linked to power and creative force. Aphrodite emerges from an event of violence, symbolizing how beauty can be born from chaos and destruction. This contrast between creation and destruction is a recurring theme in many mythologies, such as Egyptian mythology, where creator gods like Ptah and Horus also emanate from conflicts. Aphrodite thus embodies the idea that the power of beauty is often underestimated, but has a profound and lasting influence. Aphrodite's beauty is not passive. It is an active force that shapes destinies and causes significant changes. From the moment of her birth, her presence provokes intense reactions among gods and mortals. In Greek mythology, beauty is often associated with the ability to manipulate and control, whether through personal charm or the power of seduction. Aphrodite exemplifies this dynamic by using her beauty as a way of exercising power over other gods and mortals. This connection between beauty and power also appears in other cultures, such as in Celtic legends, where figures like the goddess Rhiannon are both beautiful and influential, using their charms to influence events around them. Aphrodite's power lies not only in her appearance, but in the way she uses beauty to achieve her goals. In Greek mythology, power is often shown as something fluid, not fixed, and Aphrodite demonstrates this fluidity by moving between love and war, creation and destruction. She can both unite and divide, as shown in her participation in the Trojan War. This dualism is common in ancient mythologies, where the gods have multiple facets and can be both benevolent and vengeful. Aphrodite reflects this duality by being a goddess who brings both peace and conflict, showing that the power of beauty should not be underestimated. Furthermore, the story of Aphrodite reflects how beauty is seen as a divine attribute that transcends the mere physical, touching on spiritual and emotional aspects. Her divine origin places her in a position where her beauty is not only admired, but revered. This reminds us that, in Greek mythology, beauty was a reflection of cosmic order, harmony, and balance, concepts that were central to the worldview of the ancient Greeks. Just as in Norse mythology, where the goddess Freya also personifies beauty linked to power, Aphrodite shows that divine beauty is an expression of universal forces that shape the world. Finally, the origin of Aphrodite and her story show us that the power of beauty is intrinsically linked to the power to influence, transform, and even destroy. Aphrodite, since her birth, is a figure who encapsulates the power to shape reality through beauty. Her influence is felt not only on Olympus, but throughout Greek mythology, affecting the fate of heroes, kings, and even entire cities. This link between beauty and power is a central theme in Greek mythology, where Aphrodite stands out as the goddess who most embodies this complex and multifaceted relationship. And as we explore the impact of Aphrodite's actions on the relationships between the Olympian gods, we see how her beauty and power interact in an even deeper and more significant way. Aphrodite's actions on Olympus often acted as a catalyst for conflicts and changes in the dynamics between the gods. Her ability to manipulate love and desire not only among mortals, but also among the gods themselves, generated tensions that reverberated throughout the pantheon. A clear example of this is her affair with Ares, the god of war, which, when exposed, not only humiliated Hephaestus, but also created divisions among the gods, forcing them to choose sides. Aphrodite's ability to influence divine relationships is similar to the intrigues found in other mythologies, such as Egyptian mythology, where gods like Set and Osiris faced family and power conflicts that changed the balance between the deities. Aphrodite, with her power over love, became a central figure in the disputes and alliances that formed on Olympus. Her actions were not isolated. They reverberated, creating waves of tension that affected the decisions and attitudes of the other gods. Her involvement in the Trojan War, for example, not only triggered one of the greatest conflicts in Greek mythology, but also tested the loyalties between the gods, as seen in Hera and Athena's alliance against her. Aphrodite, by manipulating Paris into choosing Helen as his reward, sowed discord among the gods and made even Zeus have to act with caution. These intrigues are a reflection of the complex power relations that Aphrodite knew how to orchestrate with mastery. Aphrodite's impact on divine relationships was not limited to creating conflicts, but also to joining forces in times of need. Her ability to inspire love and desire was often used to bring peace or forge alliances, as when she helped unite divine or mortal couples. However, this same ability could also be dangerous, leading gods and mortals to make impulsive and passionate decisions that led to catastrophic consequences. In many mythologies, such as Celtic stories, love can be both a unifying and destructive force, and Aphrodite personifies this duality by showing that relationships between gods were just as volatile as those between humans. Aphrodite's influence also brought to light the vulnerability of the gods to human emotions. Her powers revealed that, despite being immortal, the Olympian gods were not exempt from the whims of love and passion. This humanizing aspect of the gods is something that makes Greek mythology so rich and complex, showing that even the most powerful entities have their weaknesses. By awakening these feelings, Aphrodite often exposed the faults and insecurities of the gods, leading to moments of introspection and sometimes to crises that challenge the established order of Olympus. This emotional dimension of the gods is something that also appears in mythologies such as the Norse, where gods like Freya and Loki showed deeply human behavior. Aphrodite's actions, therefore, had a lasting impact on relations between the gods of Olympus, shaping not only specific events, but also the general dynamic of the pantheon. She showed that love, when manipulated, can be as powerful a force as war or wisdom, capable of creating and destroying with equal ease. As we move on to explore how Aphrodite's influence shaped the events leading up to and during the Trojan War, we see that her role on Olympus was both instigator and conciliator, reflecting the complexity of love and power in Greek mythology. Aphrodite's influence on the Trojan War began well before the conflict itself, when she offered Paris, Prince of Troy, the love of Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world. This offer was in return for Paris' choice to consider her the most beautiful goddess, giving her the apple of discord. By promising Helen to Paris, Aphrodite planted the seed of war, since Helen was already married to Menelaus, king of Sparta. This promise of forbidden love reveals how Aphrodite used her beauty and power to influence great events, manipulating human passions to achieve her goals. This type of divine intervention, where the gods directly influence human destinies, is a recurring theme in various mythologies, such as the Norse stories, where gods like Loki also created chaos to achieve their ends. When Paris kidnapped Helen and took her to Troy, Aphrodite continued to exert her influence, protecting Paris and ensuring that Helen remained by his side. During the war, Aphrodite often intervened in battles to save Paris from dangerous situations, as when she rescued him from Menelaus' sword. The protection Aphrodite offered Paris shows how actively she used her power, not only initiating the conflict, but also shaping its unfolding. Aphrodite's role in the Trojan War reflects the way in which the Greek gods often took an active part in human affairs, tipping the scales according to their preferences and rivalries. However, Aphrodite's influence was not limited to protecting Paris. She also played a crucial role in inspiring other important figures in the war, directly affecting the course of the conflict. For example, by encouraging Helen to remain with Paris, Aphrodite ensured that the war continued, as Helen's return to Menelaus could have ended hostilities. Helen's persistence at Paris' side, partly due to Aphrodite's influence, prolonged the suffering on both sides, demonstrating how passions inspired by the gods could have devastating consequences. This manipulation of love and desire is something that Aphrodite mastered, showing that her influence in the Trojan War went beyond simple whims and had a profound impact on the fate of nations. The Trojan War also revealed the limitations and internal conflicts that Aphrodite faced. Although she had the power to influence hearts and minds, she was not invulnerable. During one of the battles, when Diomedes dared to attack her, Aphrodite was wounded and had to retreat from the battlefield, demonstrating that, despite her power, she was not above mortal dangers. This episode humanizes Aphrodite, showing that, like other Greek gods, she had her weaknesses and limitations. This aspect of vulnerability is common in mythologies, such as the Norse, where even the most powerful gods, such as Thor and Odin, faced challenges that tested their limits. Ultimately, Aphrodite's influence on the Trojan War is a clear example of how love and desire, when manipulated, can have both creative and destructive consequences. Aphrodite, by provoking Helen's abduction and supporting Paris during the conflict, played a central role in the tragedy that unfolded. Her participation in the war reflects the complexity of Greek mythology, where the gods were not just spectators, but active participants in human destinies. And so, the story of Aphrodite in the Trojan War leads us to reflect on the lasting impact of her figure on the themes of beauty, power, and destiny, thus ending our journey through her myth. Aphrodite, with all her beauty and power, shows us that love is a force that can create as well as destroy. But what about you? Are you ready to apply this knowledge to your own life? What choices will you make when you understand that desire can be a weapon as sharp as any other? Think about how you can use Aphrodite's wisdom to shape your destiny, whether it's building stronger relationships or avoiding the pitfalls that desire can bring. And, after all, how do you see yourself influencing others, with kindness and charm, or with a power that few can resist? Now is the time to turn what you've learned into action. Don't let these secrets get lost. Use them to become a better version of yourself. And if you want to continue exploring the mysteries of mythology and learn more about how these ancient stories still influence the world today, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any new content that can help you expand your knowledge and apply these ancient lessons to your daily life. Let's uncover more secrets together and dive even deeper into this fascinating universe.